Everything is happening in women's hockey land right now as the PWHL preseason is underway. We've got Takeover Tour stops with a twist, some new rules, and some legends enshrined in the Hockey Hall of Fame. All of that on today's Women's Hockey Report.
This is the Women's Hockey Report presented by Locked On NHL. Your weekly look at the world of women's hockey. From the PWHL to the international stage, it's the Women's Hockey Report on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to the aforementioned Women's Hockey Report. I am Rachel Donner, and I'm here today not with Erica L Ayala, but with Angelica Rodriguez of Black Rosie Media and women's hockey expert. We go way back to the NWHL days in the OG Buffalo Buttes era. So always love talking to you about women's hockey, Angelica.
Yes. I'm so excited. I'm really excited to break the ice on our first podcast together after all these years. But yeah, it should be a good one.
Yeah, very, very exciting stuff happening as the PWHL gets going here. It's a little bit lopsided in the sense of the timing around the training camps. You know, we had the rivalry series, which you were at up in Buffalo, and it's a little lopsided because some of them started earlier, some of the players started earlier, and then some came later from rivalry series. And then we have this preseason schedule with some of the games already done and dusted for a couple of teams, while today a couple of the other teams will be getting going. So we're going to get into all of that. And we will also hear from Erica next week when we're going to talk about everything that went down out west in Seattle with their preseason, because she was on the premises there, but she was there to see Hilary Knight named as captain of the Seattle Torrent. Going to take a while to get used to saying that, but I think that was a no-brainer. And I honestly thought she'd already been named captain when the announcement happened.
I wonder if it's like a clause in her contract that she just needs to be named captain everywhere she goes, because it's just like, so it's just Hilary Knight and captain go hand in hand at this point. So yeah, definitely a no-brainer.
Yeah, you know, she and Alex Carpenter noted the high energy, the excitement. They've had their first couple of days of practice thus far, and I'm excited to talk to Erica about all of that in our episode when the season kicks off next week. Now, I think, you know, the common trend in all of these preseason camps is a reset in expectations here, because with expansion, there are so many roster changes here, and, you know, lots of new players to integrate. There's players that change teams that really had little to do with the expansion process. There was the new draft picks that are being integrated as well. And so I think the biggest question that I had for these teams is, you know, how do you integrate all of this in such a short time, right?
Right, absolutely. It's a lot in a little amount. I mean, I think with puck drop being later in this month, I mean, literally in 1 week from now, we'll be looking at, you know, watching the puck drop in literally almost to the hour. So it's just wild to think about the fact that, you know, you go from, and like you said, like all the changes, not just in the rosters, but, you know, you go from teams, you know, preparing for one exhibition series, and now all of a sudden having to prepare for another series of exhibition games and you know, training camp and whatnot. And it's a lot. And I don't envy any of these players, least of all the national team players who just played 2 games in a row. You know, I think that's a big part of why we didn't see the normal names that we saw. And I did mention that last episode with Erica. I think that's why we didn't see some of the names that we saw. And I think that's kind of might have been part of the reason why Canada was a little lackluster. I'm not going to, you know, say that like is absolutely the case, but who knows?
Yeah, I think that's entirely possible, but certainly fun as a fan of the American side of things to watch how those games played out.
Whew, yeah, definitely some big excitement. And, you know, maybe that was part of it too. You know, Troy Ryan had mentioned, you know, Canadian fans and USA fans expecting, certain things of certain, of the players and of the rosters and everything. So yeah, definitely.
So, my perspective here on what I've seen so far is entirely based on being on the scene for New York Sirens training camp. So, I got to see a day of practice for just the New York Sirens. Then I saw both preseason games between the Sirens and Minnesota Frost. And really interesting to be able to see these two particular teams play each other in the preseason, given we have the bottom of the table team versus the champions, returning two-time returning champions, right? And they had very different approaches in how to use these preseason games, because when you looked at what the Minnesota Frost did in this camp, like, and Ken Klee talked about this with me after the first game and saying, yeah, we're looking to integrate the new players. We have to do player evaluations for some of the camp invitees and the new draft picks. We got to see where the chemistry is going to happen here. Whereas I think on the Sirens side of things, it was more about let's put this team together, right? And I think there are fewer decisions to be made, to be honest, on the Siren side of things. That like what that roster is going to be is more locked ahead of time than one would think. Even though they did have camp invitees there, I think it's fairly obvious what the final roster is going to be there. So you saw with the Minnesota Frost in game 1, they split their top players between the two games. And so Kendall Coyne-Schofield and Sydney Moran, Kelly Panic, Mae Batherson, Britta Carl, they played in the first game. And that game was super fast paced, as one might expect with those players in the lineup, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Minnesota is known as a fast team. They're known as a more physical team. They're known as, offensively very strong. So, yeah.
Yeah. And then in the second game, all those players sat, and we had Lee Steckline, Grace Zumwinkle, Taylor Heisey, and Klara Himlarova played in that one. And so, yeah, it was interesting between the two games, right? Because the skill was definitely there in the second game. Like, obviously, we saw what kind of rivalry series Taylor Heisey had, right?
Oh,
and so pretty remarkable. And, and so she sat the first game, and Lee Steckline even scored in this game. But that being said, the pace was a little slower for this one for Minnesota. And I really think the Sirens were able to capitalize on that. Hence, they dominated on the scoreboard in this one.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is interesting. It's definitely, I mean, obviously I get the approach, and the approach, like you said, is going to be different for each team, depending on how many invitees they had versus how many draft picks versus how many signings, all of that. So, and I do think that obviously there are still some decisions that the Sirens have to make in terms of the invitees and the draft picks. So, with all of that said, each team, I should say. With that said, I mean, I don't know. It's so difficult in such a short amount of time. It's with such a truncated schedule for preseason and training camp. I really don't know that we can really make a snap judgment. It's difficult enough in the NHL when they have like a month beforehand.
Right. Which is almost too much time, right?
Right, exactly. So like trying to think about it in the span of a week and a half, especially because so many of those players in the first half, well, actually, no, it was pretty evenly split between both squads that they iced, because Heisey, Zumwinkle, all of them all played in the rivalry series alongside Kendall Coyne-Schofield and Britta Carl and all of them. So yeah, I really don't know. I think that Minnesota may also be trying a little bit harder to figure out where they go. They were pretty heavily hit when it came to the expansion draft. And so I think that, especially in net and some of, with some of the other, obviously they're going to have to retool a little bit of their front end, but, the back end is definitely, something that they'll want to consider. But I just, I don't know. It's very, like I said, it's very difficult, but it's very interesting to see the disparity for sure.
Yeah, so I would say on the Frost side of things, like the only kind of non-regular that stood out to me was Peyton Anderson.
Mhm.
I thought she looked really good. She wound up scoring in that first game, and definitely stood out to me. On the Siren side of things, like I said, they're trying to get that top six dialed because that's where all of their offense is going to have to come from. And I thought it was interesting because in the first game, they had Casey O'Brien centering Kaltenkova and Cherkowski, right? Natural, like young guns kind of
Yeah,
line, right?
definitely.
And they were gangbusters, right? And I just thought, especially later in the game, they came on really strong, had some really good opportunities, especially net front. And Cherkowski is going to be sneaky good. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
But like,
Hmm.
I love her game.
Yeah.
But in the second game, when they brought back in some of the vets, and I hate to call Sarah Fillier a vet, but it's year two, babe, in a three
In a
season
three-season
league.
league, yeah,
So
you play 2/3 of the time by now, so yeah.
Exactly, exactly. So Sarah Fillier slotted in on that first line instead of Kaltenkova, and
Mhm.
Kaltenkova was then centered by O'Neill, and then Peyton Levis was on the other side. And man, Kristen O'Neill is going to turn out to be, in my opinion, one of the smartest moves made in this offseason, going to the New York Sirens, because I think her veteran presence is going to help bring Kaltenkova along, and you could
Mhm.
see that chemistry start to build. And O'Brien and Fillier had instant chemistry out there
Yeah.
and combined on multiple of Sarah Fillier's natural hat trick goals in that game.
Sarah
So
Fillier is one of those players, I feel like no matter who she plays with, it's
I
just
know.
magic. She's one of those players that can instantly click, and it's so exciting to see. Obviously, things are gonna look a little different for her, coming this season, but just, oh my god, I'm so excited to see what this brings. She's I mean, the Ice Garden named her top 25, the top of the list of 25 players under 25. So, it's Sarah Fillier's league, I think, at this point, and we're all just playing in it.
I
You
know. I
know?
know. And that's the thing, is like this New York Sirens team, I still think they're going to have an uphill climb here. I think, there's some questions in the bottom six for them. There's some questions on the blue line and goaltending, which is a huge, huge issue for them.
Absolutely. They lost
I
Corinne
thought,
Porter,
yeah,
yeah, and
I
she
think
was
Kaylee Osborne, she struggled obviously at the rivalry series game, but I think she
played well, though.
she
She played
did.
well. She,
It was just rough on her.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it was a slog, and Team USA is like that. They're gonna come down your throat if you let them, and that's exactly what happened. So, but no, I think she played well. I think I mean, it's gonna be a learning curve regardless, because she's going from, sitting to now she's, probably gonna be top dog there. Um,
She is
yeah.
100%. Like
So it's just
Greg
like,
Fargo said it to
well,
me.
there you
So
go. There you go. And I mean, yeah, Greg Fargo would say that it's the Colgate connection. But, I think, man, I feel like the Sirens this is a year that they're really going to have to kind of lock in. And like, this could be make or break for even Pascal Daou, because it's
yep.
just, 2 straight years in the cellar, two, no, consecutive number one picks. You're going to have to start ponying up. I know obviously we're talking about, again, a third-year league with only 8 teams, but again, there's going to be 8 teams, so it's going to be even more difficult, especially when you consider who's on those 2 expansion teams.
Exactly. Yeah, it is going to be tough, but I do think the room is there for them to grow. The skill is there, and like I said, goaltending is going to be really huge for them this season. And the one thing I will say is, having been there for a day of practice and a couple of games, there's a lightness to this team that has not been there ever in the history of this league. Like, I just feel like they've been kind of operating with everything clenched for the last 2 years, and now like everything is free, and they're working hard and they're dedicated, but they're like, everybody's playing their own game and utilizing their own skills to the best of their ability in this preseason. And hopefully that translates into the regular season for them. We shall see, of course, the rest of the league. And I promise we will talk about them next week when we have preseason games to react to. But Boston and Montreal get things going today, as do Seattle and Vancouver. Then we have Toronto and Ottawa, which will get going on Sunday in their preseason. So each of them will have those matchups for a couple of days. The official preseason wraps up on Monday, where Toronto and Ottawa will play, Boston and Montreal will play, and then we have a few days until the regular season kicks in. So very exciting times for women's hockey.
Yeah, if any of us can catch our breath, at least.
Exactly. Now we have some new rules that just came out yesterday, and earlier in the week we got the Takeover Tour announcement. So we're going to get into all of that coming up next. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. And that's why there is Monarch. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. It does all the heavy lifting. You can link your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Monarch helps you notice inefficient investment allocations and discover forgotten 401ks from past jobs. You'll save even more money you can then turn around and reinvest. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarch.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarch.com with code LOCKEDONNHL. Thanks for making the Women's Hockey Report your first listen today. And thanks for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network here. Now, we did get some new rules. The PWHL is always good for a Friday afternoon news drop.
I didn't even catch it. I was running errands before I sat down to do this. So this is brand new information to me.
Yeah, this happened while I was at the rink during the second preseason game for the Sirens and the Frost here. And so there were two significant things they called out. Well, first off, the rules are now on the website, which is great. So we'll put a link to that in the show notes for you. So you can read all the rules for the upcoming PWHL season. But there's a goaltending rule put into place. And this is kind of to establish essentially the NHL EBUG situation. So all of the teams have 3 goalies rostered on the list, and 2 of them dress. And if there is an injury to one of the goaltenders during the course of the game where they have to leave the game, then the third goalie will be allowed to dress and act as backup. So you aren't just stuck with the one goalie for the remainder of the game. So this essentially creates the EBUG system, but it's your third goalie. And that's kind of, I think, why when I talked to Greg Fargo, head coach of the New York Sirens, about any potential goaltending battles, and he's like, well, everybody's going to be on the roster, like all 3 goalies. It's really Kaylee Osborne is the starter, and then the other 2 are fighting for ice time, really. So I think that is an interesting approach here, but I think it does create a certain level of stability for the teams, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I've always thought that teams should have 3 goalies. Again, by virtue of me having to watch the goalie carousel in Buffalo during one of their last seasons, if not their last season, I want to say. It's just a smart move. You never know what's going to happen. God forbid, somebody goes out or anything like that. And I mean, we've even seen situations like that in the NHL this season as well. Look at the Sabres, look at the Leafs. So it's very, I just think it's smart. I think it's good to have. It's a good problem to have if you're, if you have, especially if you have three very strong goaltenders and literally any single one of them could theoretically be a starter. I think it makes for a really interesting, dynamic. I'm a goalie defender always, so I'm for it. More goalies. Make a whole team of goalies.
Well, I know this is about, I'm hoping CJ gets some more games as a result of
Yes.
this.
I do think they will. I do think that all three goaltenders on Seattle are fantastic, and Corinne Schroeder is she's going to do great things. I think in Seattle, but I think CJ, they've proven themselves, I think, with the limited amount of time they've had in the crease. I think they've proven themselves to be, a good backup, a solid backup, and a good option.
Yeah, I think so. So the other rule that is getting updated, I think is pretty significant here because they are essentially getting rid of the coaches challenge and they're going to have it be the call of the officials or a situation room call to review certain situations, which have been coaches challenges in the past. So it's a missed stoppage in the offensive zone leading to a goal, a potential goalie interference on a scoring play, and the delay of game penalty with the puck over the glass.
Puck over the glass, I feel it's one of those annoying penalties. I hate that penalty, but because I genuinely don't think that many players are intentionally dumping it over the glass to get a stoppage, unless you've been out there for 3 minutes, which rarely happens. So yeah, I hate that penalty, but it's an interesting one to have, unless, because it does happen so quick, maybe they just want to make extra sure that it's a deflection and not, or not a deflection, I should say. That's really interesting. I don't know that I like it.
Yeah, I wonder, if it's like the purpose of it is to keep the game moving faster so that they're only going to stop and review when the league wants to stop and review. But
It just
other
takes away
than
some of
that,
the autonomy. Yeah, it just takes away some of the autonomy of the coaches. And I'm sorry, but we've seen it multiple times in multiple leagues by now. Officiating is not quite there yet when it comes to accuracy or consistency a lot of the time. Yeah.
And the league has put into place like a new leadership team and a new committee for officiating specifically. And they talked about that a little bit in the news announcement yesterday. But I think, until I see some changes, I'm not sure how to evaluate any of this to see how it goes.
I genuinely think that they should have done one first and then introduced the other. And I think, which one is which. Definitely think that should have implemented the leadership team and then looked at phasing out coaches' challenges. Because I just feel like it's really just all at once. You're just giving all of this power to the officials, which again, the officials are there to do a job. I would never want an officiating job. Trust me. But, I think that's a lot all at once.
I think it'll be interesting to see how the calls are made. And, if there's no coaches challenge, like who's going to get angry first?
Oh my God. My money is on Greg Fargo for sure.
Maybe. In the meantime, one of the other big news drops that happened this week was the Takeover Tour. It's something we've been waiting for what seems like weeks and ever since the schedule came out. And the thing that was interesting about it is like when the schedule came out, there were way too many TBDs in the location field of the schedule. And I was a little concerned because I was like, we can't have 20 Takeover Tour games, right?
Right.
Pretty close though, 16, up from 9 last year. Like, just curious what your thoughts are on the increased number of stops.
It's so funny because, when you look at and see what fans have to say, obviously every fan wants it in their town. Like somebody who lives in Sioux Falls is going to want a Takeover Tour stop there, regardless of how feasible it is. I think we all need to realize that, I think these Takeover Tours are more serving the league and their potential expansion ventures than anything else. And that sucks, especially for those of us in Buffalo, because I know we're going to get to it, but that is no longer a takeover tour stop. They had a pretty low turnout last season. I can be very honest about that because I was there. It was a pretty low turnout. And as a result, unfortunately, even though the fan base is small there, it's mighty, but that's just not enough for them. So it's no longer a thing. So, but I understand, they've got to think about business first. Unfortunately, in a capitalist society, we're not going to go down that road, but yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's interesting because not only do we get more stops, but some cities are getting 2.
Yeah.
And that's where your point about expansion is a good one, because it's like cities like Denver, which were very successful last year, are now getting 2, which leads one to believe that they could be on the short list for expansion, right?
And I mean, I think that it would be a really cool thing to see Denver get a team. I mean, obviously, with their willingness to expand westward, it's not out of the realm of possibility. So it would be really cool to see, counterpart, PWHL counterpart to the Avs there. It would be really easy for me to finally pull the trigger on moving to Denver, but so but yeah, I mean, it's just, there's a couple of cities with multiple stops. And again, you got to just kind of consider, okay, especially if they're teams that have had it in the past. Like, okay, we're coming back and we're going to be, hopefully filling up the entire arena, not just a lower bowl or something like that. So it's going to be, but you also have to consider too, and I think this was a point as well in either the press release or some sort of write-up about it that I came across, that you're going to want to think about also, because the PWHL does want to align itself very closely with the NHL. You got to think about the willingness of what organizations in those cities with NHL teams are going to be open to that. Sounds like DC, potentially. Sounds like Detroit. Sounds like Denver. So
yeah, and then of course on the other side of things, Edmonton has 2 stops as well, and they were a very popular tour stop last year, and so they've got 2 stops this year. I would put money.
The only Canadian cities last year? I don't remember.
No, well, we have Quebec City, so
yeah.
Yeah, so they've got 1 stop this year, but they've added Hamilton, Ontario this
only
year.
Only an hour away, and 20 minutes away from us, you guys.
And then Halifax got a couple of stops this year, which I think is the most intriguing because it's so far from everything, but at the same time, a very, I think, important hockey market in Canada.
Sidney Crosby.
Yep.
Sidney Crosby, Nathan McKinnon.
Home of the Mooseheads. We love a good Moosehead game.
Brad Marchand. So, there's a strong connection in hockey to Nova Scotia. And I think that would be really cool, honestly. I would love to see a team in Nova Scotia someday. And I would love to see CJ be the starting goaltender for that team. But anyway, all that aside, it's really interesting to see. I think Quebec City is going to be fantastic. I think one thing that Montreal and Quebec in general has shown is that they're going to show up for women's hockey. They're going to show up for hockey, period. I mean, it was obvious when I think it was the Montreal Force when they did their barnstorming season. I mean, those rinks were booming. So it's exciting. It really is.
It is. And we haven't mentioned Chicago, which is getting 2 stops, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Dallas is getting a stop, which is new this year. That's exciting for them. So lots of really good opportunities to see women's hockey around the country. Or around the US and Canada, but some cities did get the shaft. You mentioned Buffalo, Raleigh was a tour stop last year that Erica and I went to. We had a great time there, so they're not on the list. And I'm always going to put it out there that I think it is a travesty that Philadelphia is not on this list.
That's
And
insane.
for two reasons. Number one, they just got a WNBA team. And to add to the excitement for women's sports in the market, having a takeover tour stop. I'm not suggesting they're ready for an expansion team, and I would not put them near the top of a list, but a tour stop, absolutely. Because not only does it create some synergy with this new WNBA team that's coming, but also more Sirens fans. You can get more Sirens fans if you bring them to Philly. I promise you that.
Yeah.
And that's something that would be super helpful for that team.
Yeah.
So
I think that there's a really good point to be made too about the fact that because there's so few teams in the league, there are going to be fans pretty much everywhere. You're going to have Minnesota Frost fans in Florida. You're going to have, Seattle fans in New York City. You're just going to have those fans. So being able to at least have a couple of stops that can really, add to that and speak to that, I should say, that would be awesome. So, I definitely think Philly would be a great opportunity.
As would Pittsburgh. I got to be fair to the other.
Oh my God, Pittsburgh. Yes. I mean, if you really think about it, Pittsburgh, I'm shocked that more women's hockey has not made its way to Pittsburgh as of right now, because
they've had so many international exhibition games there. Why is the pro game been avoiding Pittsburgh? I don't know.
I mean, it's just it's crazy to me. I mean, the NWHL had, their all-star game there. I think they also had an exhibition game there, or it might have been, I don't remember. Everything is kind of a blur.
The PWHPA had a showcase weekend there.
Yes, that there. Thank you. Let me tell you something. That was a wild time. Just a lot of movement around in women's hockey, but yeah, I mean, there's been showcases there, there's been all-star games there, and yet they still have not gotten the hints. I mean, RMU made a comeback there, so they haven't gotten the hint. I feel like Pittsburgh is one of those sleeper picks for a PWHL team. I think they are ready for one.
I absolutely think
Buffalo
there too.
Yeah,
it's just again, I don't know how close they are to expansion level, but to have just a stop, why not? Why not Pittsburgh?
Yeah. Why not Pennsylvania? What's wrong with Pennsylvania, PWHL?
Well, listen.
Got beef there? Come on.
Yeah. Yeah. I have beef. As somebody who was born in the state of Pennsylvania, I have beef with the PWHL.
You should. That's rude.
On this front.
That's
it
rude.
is very rude. It is very, very rude. All right. We had some legends inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame. It was so nice to have 3 women to talk about on Hockey Hall of Fame weekend. 3 whole women. We will talk about them coming up next. When I'm hydrated, everything just works better. My focus, energy, mood, even my skin. That's why I've been using Drip Drop. It's doctor-developed hydration that keeps me running at full power no matter what my day looks like. It isn't your average sports drink. Drip Drop delivers 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of leading brands using a science-backed formula trusted by medical professionals, firefighters, and over 90% of top college and pro teams. I work out a lot, and I like using Drip Drop as part of my daily routine. I'll mix a packet in the morning before the gym to make sure I have the right level of energy to power through that spin class or on my weights day. My go-to flavor is the zero sugar strawberry lemonade. It's become my secret weapon for staying hydrated, which is so important. It helps me feel sharper, calmer, and honestly just better overall. And right now, Drip Drop is offering podcast listeners 20% off your first order. Go to dripdrop.com and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL. That's dripdrop.com. Promo code LOCKEDONNHL for 20% off. Stock up now before the heat hits hard and keep your body and mind performing at their best with Drip Drop. Hockey season is well underway, and nothing beats being in the arena for these opening games. But let's be real, getting tickets can sometimes be a total headache between waiting in online queues, surprise fees, and prices that jump right before checkout. It's easy to get frustrated when all you want to do is cheer on your team, and that is where Game Time comes in. It's the app that gives fans the advantage. It's your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NHL tickets fast, easy, and stress-free. My favorite feature is their in-app seat view feature, so you can see exactly what your view is going to look like before you buy those tickets. Plus, the zone deals are a game changer where you pick a section, Game Time picks your seats, and you can save big. You can even find NHL tickets for under $25. I recently used Game Time to grab seats for a concert, and it could not have been simpler. I had great seats in minutes. Take the guesswork out of buying NHL tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Angelica, we had 3 women inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame last weekend, and
That's $3 whole, you guys.
3. I know
3.
we joke about this, but I have had a running joke for years that the Hockey Hall of Fame didn't know how to count above 2. So here we are. But
I'm so glad they learned.
They did. But all jokes aside, not inducting Jennifer Botterill until the year of our Lord 2025 has been one of the biggest travesties in the Hockey Hall of Fame. I mean, she won the Patty Kaz twice at Harvard, of all places.
Right.
And of course, had tremendous success internationally with Team Canada. 3 gold medals to her name in 2002, 2006, 2010. She won that 1 silver in 98 in Nagano. I think she was like 16 years old when she did that.
Insane.
The first go around, 101 games played at the senior level internationally, 50 goals, 60 assists, 120 points. Like, my God, what a career.
Yeah, it's insane. Just, I mean, her and one other woman we'll be talking about in a moment, but like, golly, like, it's just crazy to think about. Like, what do you have to do to get like to get on that ballot faster? Like,
Yeah.
how do you not like induct this woman? I mean, there are some players that I feel should have won the Patty Kaz once who didn't win. And like, she won it twice. That is such a difficult award to win twice. And it's just like she's been, one of those like legends of the sport. Like you said, it's just absolutely insane, but I'm glad she's here, and yeah, she deserves it. Well deserved.
Yeah, and of course, she was at the forefront of women's pro hockey in the early days in the OG NWHL, the original version of it, and was a founding player in the CWHL as well. So, I think a lot of what exists in women's hockey today is because of her, and I think it's been long overdue. So very excited there. Now, kind of at the other end of the spectrum is a very recent retiree in Brianna Decker. Another Patty Kaz winner in 2012 at Wisconsin, but like one of the most remarkable players to ever play the game at the college level, right?
Yeah, I mean, and like you said, another Patty Kaz winner, won just about every honor you can think of, especially in her first season. But not only that, she has just produced at every single level, college, professional, and international. We talk about founding players. She played for multiple CWHL teams, Boston and Calgary. She played in the NWHL as a member of the Boston Pride, won their first MVP award for both playoffs and regular season, which is insane to think about. She's just one of those players that has just dominated, scored the first ever hat trick in the NWHL history in the second iteration of the NWHL. And she just has that pedigree, a Shattuck St. Mary's product. She, is now getting her feet into coaching over the last couple of years. She's been doing that. So, I mean, just an unbelievable talent. Definitely one of the players I remember watching when I first got into women's hockey and just being like, wow, like that is an amazing, amazing hockey player. And another just legend of the sport.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, it was pretty wild, like knowing she got inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame, and literally, like, I'm seeing her 2 days later behind the bench coaching the
Yeah.
Minnesota Frost. And I'm
Yes.
like, like, what a tone shift, right?
Yeah, seriously.
So
Names as an assistant coach in August, and I think it's a little bit of a homecoming for her. She went to Wisconsin, and again, Wisconsin, huge hockey hotbed. I mean, Mark Johnson's been coaching there for how many years now? I feel like he's been coaching there about as long as I've been alive. So it's definitely been, it's an amazing pedigree she's got.
yeah, and then we get our first ever woman inducted to the Hockey Hall of Fame in the builder category with
Yes.
Daniele Sauvageau, and she is, I think, at least partly, if not more than half, responsible for the success of Hockey Canada's women's program.
I mean, she took it over in 2002. Hockey Canada was like, listen, silver's not good enough. And she took it over and she won gold. It's just, more than that too. She's just been pushing women's hockey along to the forefront. She was a big part of the bid, the winning Olympic bid for Vancouver 2010. She's coached and had experience in pretty much so many levels, as many levels as you can think of for, a coach to work in. She's worked and she's even, made history as one of the first female coach in the QJMHL, which, is the Quebec branch of the major junior league in Canada. So, just another one, because literally she was inducted in the Canadian Hall of Fame in 2008, and it took almost 20 years, 17 years to get her into the Hockey Hall
Not
of Fame.
okay.
Yeah, like what else did she need to do? Like donate a kidney? Like, come on, guys. But again, this is what happens when, the men can only count to two, I guess. But honestly, again, to really think about it, she and Jen Botterill technically could have gone in that slot as far as I'm concerned. And any of them, it's so interesting to think about too, what constitutes a builder in women's hockey as opposed to men's hockey. Because you talk about builders in men's hockey and you're talking about a GM of one team. You're talking about builders in women's hockey and you're talking about the fact that these players are asked to do the impossible, which is not only be an elite athlete, but also to propel an entire movement forward when it comes to women's hockey and grassroots and role models and all of that stuff that they love to put on women all the time. So it's just really interesting to think about, the players who have already become builders and the players who kind of act as builders through their play, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And again, long overdue for her. Excited to see what she does moving forward as GM of the Victoire. I think, obviously they had a really great regular season last year, but it didn't pan out in the playoffs. So can she get this team together that will get them beyond that? We shall see this season, which of course puck drop is in less than a week. We've got 6 days from this episode release until puck drop of the third PWHL season, and we will be talking about those opening games on our show next week with Erica coming back. We're going to talk Seattle, Vancouver, Boston. We'll get into all the Ottawa. We'll get into all the other teams that we have not talked about. I guess I should mention Toronto as well on that list there. And
it's okay. No, it's fine. We didn't need to talk about Toronto. No, I'm kidding.
No, honestly, we'll just have more insight once we get the final roster on that.
Yeah.
But thanks for making the Women's Hockey Report your first listen today. For your next listen, check out the all-new Locked On NHL Game Night. It's every game, every night until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale with NHL Game Night on this very feed that you are watching right now on Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Of course, we will be back next Saturday on the Women's Hockey Report. Have a good week, y'all.